So, your character Nimue in this series, she goes through such a journey, obviously, throughout the first season. So, what first attracted you to this role?
Um, I remember I was looking for something really special and something that was challenging, and I wasn't necessarily looking to do um, something in TV. But then Netflix actually sent through this manuscript of a book that was written by Tom Wheeler and Frank Miller, and I remember I read like the first couple of pages, and then I kept reading it, and I couldn't put it down. And I think it was the story, a combination of the story, but also the character and the journey that Nimue goes on that really attracted me towards this. In addition to, the fact that this is a story from, or a perspective from the Arthurian legends that we've never seen before. And also that it's the story of a true heroine. And I think that as a woman, we don't really see stories where we see ourselves as heroes that are specific to our obstacles as women. So it just felt like something really important and that I would have loved to have been a part of.
Yeah. And obviously, you mentioned that this is the first time the Arthurian legend is being told from a female's perspective, and it's kind of being brought to a newer, younger generation. So, how does it feel to kind of like lead the charge in that way?
It's amazing. I mean, it's incredible because in a way, there's so much liberty and freedom. When we watch, or I tried to watch in preparation for the role, all the renditions of the Arthurian legends that I could get my hands on. So I watched all of BBC Merlin. I watched all of the content that I could, and it was kind of shocking to see that there really was no mention or very seldom any kind of detail about the female characters. So it felt very liberating and exciting to be able to tell this story. But I also think, in a way, it was also, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves in order to tell this story from a woman's perspective, because it is kind of one of the first times we've seen a woman at the epicenter of this legendary tale. And I think it's so important that when you're representing someone's story that you tell it in the most truthful and organic way. So we were very lucky in having a lot of women behind the camera, in front of the camera, but also creating, our hair and makeup, our costume designer, our set designer were all women. And I think it really contributed to telling her story.
Yeah. And then this role is quite physical for you. You're wielding a sword, you have all these fight scenes, you're riding horseback. So how did you prepare, and how did it feel to get to do all these awesome stunts on screen?
I'm a former athlete, so I trained for 10 years as a swimmer, and I was really excited to kind of dive into that element or that challenging aspect of the role. And I think with these things, you always wish you had more time because these skills take years. They take years and years to learn. And I really have to give credit to Steve Dent's company, who were this incredible company that dealt with all our stunts, horse riding and sword fighting. And they basically had 4 weeks to take me and a couple of the other boys, I think Devin and Dan, although Dan's had sword work, so we're counting him out because he's had a big head start. But they had 4 weeks to really turn us into these capable and confident sword wielders and horse riders. And after we started filming, it was sort of like learn on the go, which was really exciting, but it's also something I'd love to learn more about.
Yeah. Did you draw any inspiration from any other actors that you watched before on screen? Because I feel like it's kind of badass to be wielding a sword in a show.
Yeah. It was so exciting, and my inner nerd / child was having so much fun. It's tricky because I think as a woman, these roles are so far and few between. When you're seeing them in this genre, but also as the protagonist, it kind of doesn't really happen. But when it does happen, it happens well, it's so exciting. Like I remember watching Jennifer Lawrence as Katniss Everdeen and Angelina Jolie as Tomb Raider, and Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. I think seeing women in these roles where they're strong and where they're capable and where they're not being a damsel in distress, and really honoring the strengths of a woman and her capabilities, and not undermining those capabilities. I think that was really important for me when we were telling this story, was to not undermine her capabilities.
Yeah. And I love her transformation throughout the series. Obviously, we see her start off kind of embarrassed of who she is and her powers, and then she kind of grows into this courageous, confident person who fights for her people. And I think that journey is like true of so many people. So how did you personally relate to Nimue's story?
Well, I mean, at first, I feel like Nimue has so much courage, and I could only hope that I would have an ounce of that courage. But to me, you know, I think for me, like superhero, just the idea of a superhero, first and foremost, for me, it doesn't necessarily mean someone with extraordinary abilities. To me, it talks about a person who overcomes, and the way in which they overcome the adversity thrown at them. And Nimue is someone who is so restless, and she's such an outcast when we first see her. But she also endures so much loss. And I think seeing that, and also seeing the compassion that she then has towards other people, even if they're strangers, I really believe that she's this person that doesn't want anyone else to experience that kind of loss or that sadness or that loneliness. And I think that's where a lot of her courage comes from. And I think that's kind of where my key into her was, especially I think the restlessness. You know, I believe that whoever you are and whatever age you are, wherever you are in your life, we all have these moments where we know that there's something special inside of us, and we're not quite sure how to express that or what it is or where we fit in. And she's the same. And I think that's the really human journey that we all can relate to.